All right, so you're thinking about adding a WAMP developer to your team.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It probably means you're working on some pretty cool Windows-based projects,
Uh-huh.
and you need someone who really knows how to work in that environment.
Yeah, definitely.
But I bet finding the right developer can feel a little bit like navigating a maze.
Yeah, it can definitely be a challenge.
There's a lot to consider.
For sure.
And that's why we're doing this mini deep dive today,
Right.
to give you all the essential knowledge you need
Yeah,
to make really smart hiring decisions.
it's important.
We'll answer all the most common questions that people have about WAMP developers,
Yep,
so you can find the perfect match for what you need.
exactly. And, if you want to try to streamline that whole process,
Yeah?
I would always recommend checking out theperfectdeveloper.com.
Oh, yeah, they're great.
They have this fantastic tool.
Uh-huh.
It's called the 5 questions.
I love that.
And it can help you pinpoint the exact skills and experience that you need for your specific project.
It can be a game changer, for sure.
Absolutely.
But for now, let's just dive into some of those frequently asked questions.
Okay, sounds good.
And we have our expert here with us today, who has been poring over all the information in the WAMP Developer's Playbook Guide.
It's a great resource.
It is, and that's also published
Uh-huh.
by the folks over at theperfectdeveloper.com.
They really know their stuff.
They do. So let's just start with the basics.
Okay.
What exactly is a WAMP developer?
Sure.
And why should you care?
Well, a WAMP developer is a software developer who specializes in building and deploying web applications using the WAMP stack,
Okay,
which is Windows, Apache, MySQL, and PHP.
gotcha.
And the reason you should care is that if your project relies on a Windows Server environment, a WAMP developer is going to be your go-to expert.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But what makes them different from, say, any other web developer who knows PHP and MySQL?
Right. So it's all about the ecosystem.
Okay,
A lot of developers out there can code, but a WAMP developer understands all the nuances
right.
of how all those components that we just talked about,
Yeah.
Windows, Apache, MySQL, and PHP,
Yep.
work together specifically within a Windows environment.
Okay.
So they can optimize for performance, security, and stability in ways that a developer who's primarily experienced with, let's say, a Linux environment might not be able to.
So it's kind of like a chef might be able to follow a recipe,
Okay.
but a WAMP developer is the one who can create a whole new dish using those same ingredients, but tailored to a specific type of cuisine.
That's a really great analogy.
Thanks.
They're not just coding, they're crafting solutions
Yeah.
that are perfectly suited for a Windows-based world.
So Windows expertise is really key.
It is.
Gotcha. Okay, so now let's say I'm ready to start looking for a WAMP developer.
Okay.
What are some skills that I should be looking for?
Well, first and foremost, you need someone who's fluent in PHP.
Okay.
And I'm not just talking about basic syntax here.
Hmm.
We're talking about a deep understanding of the language.
Experience with frameworks like Laravel or Symfony,
Yeah.
and a solid grasp of best practices for writing clean, efficient code.
So it's not just about knowing the language.
Right.
It's about mastering it.
Absolutely.
What?
Database management is really crucial.
Oh, okay.
Your WAMP developer needs to be proficient in MySQL.
Okay.
So creating, optimizing, and managing databases.
Uh-huh.
Because a poorly managed database can be a major bottleneck for your application.
Right. Because a slow database is just going to lead to frustrated users.
Exactly.
Anything else on that technical side?
Absolutely. Apache configuration is another essential skill.
Okay.
This is about setting up, securing, and optimizing your Apache server.
Okay.
It's the foundation of your WAMP environment,
Uh-huh.
and you need someone who knows how to make it rock solid.
So if PHP is the language and MySQL is the data storehouse,
Yeah,
Apache is the engine that makes it all run smoothly.
that's a great way to think about it.
What about the Windows part of all of? Of course. Well, Windows OS knowledge is paramount.
Makes sense.
This is really where a WAMP developer shines.
Uh-huh.
They understand the ins and outs of the Windows Server environment.
Oh,
They can troubleshoot issues specific to Windows,
right.
and they can really leverage the strengths of that platform. Yeah, it's their home turf.
Uh-huh.
They know all the shortcuts and secret passages.
Gotcha. But technical skills aren't everything, right?
Right.
I mean, you also need someone who can think on their feet
Yes.
and handle the unexpected.
Absolutely. The problem-saving skills are non-negotiable.
Yeah, for sure.
A good WAMP developer can debug code, troubleshoot server issues, and find creative solutions when things inevitably go wrong.
Uh-huh.
They're the ones who stay calm under pressure.
So they're not just building the house.
Right.
They're also equipped to handle any plumbing or electrical problems
Yeah.
that might pop up along the way.
Precisely. And while it's not strictly WAMP specific,
Okay.
having some front-end knowledge
Oh,
like
yeah.
HTML, CSS, and JavaScript can also be a major bonus.
Because then they can help create those seamless, user-friendly experiences.
Exactly. A little front-end know-how allows your WAMP developer to really connect the back-end logic with a beautiful and functional interface.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we've covered the what of WAMP developers,
Right.
what they are, and the skills that they bring to the table.
Uh-huh.
Now let's talk about what they actually do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. What's a typical day look like for a WAMP developer?
Well, their responsibilities can be quite diverse,
Attach.
but here's a quick snapshot.
Okay.
First and foremost, they're responsible for setting up and configuring that WAMP environment.
Right.
It's like laying the foundation for a building.
So making sure all the pieces are in place before the real construction can begin.
Exactly. Once the environment is set up,
Mm-hmm.
they'll dive into developing the back-end logic using PHP.
Okay.
This involves creating APIs, handling data processing, and basically ensuring that all the behind-the-scenes magic happens smoothly.
So that's like the brains of the operation,
It-
making sure all the systems are talking to each other correctly.
Exactly. And of course, a big part of their role
Yeah.
is designing, optimizing, and managing those all-important MySQL databases.
Right.
Think of this as maintaining the heart of your application.
Okay. So they're not just writing code, they're also making sure that the data is flowing efficiently and is stored securely.
You got it.
Okay.
Okay.
And speaking of security,
Yeah.
WAMP developers play a really crucial role in safeguarding your applications and your data.
For sure.
They're the ones configuring permissions, implementing encryption, and basically building a fortress around your sensitive information.
So they're like the cybersecurity guards of the WAMP world.
You could say that.
Nice.
They're on the front lines protecting your data from breaches and vulnerabilities.
That's great.
On top of all of that,
Yeah.
they're troubleshooting any issues within the Windows environment.
Uh-huh.
So if something goes wrong,
Right.
they're the ones that need to diagnose the problem, find a solution, and get things back up and running quickly. Because downtime is a nightmare for any business.
Oh, it is.
Every minute counts these days.
Exactly. And finally,
Wow.
they're continuously testing, debugging, and optimizing code and server configurations.
Right.
Think of this as fine-tuning the engine to make sure your application is running at peak performance.
Okay, so it's a pretty demanding role
It can be.
with a lot of responsibilities.
Yeah.
They're the architects, the engineers, the security guards, and the mechanics all rolled into one.
That's a great way to put it.
So now that we have a good understanding of what a WAMP developer does,
Right.
now we're ready to start thinking about that actual hiring process.
Yeah,
And this is where things get a little tricky.
definitely.
I mean, where do you even begin?
Yeah.
There are so many factors to consider: location, salary, employment type. It can feel overwhelming.
It definitely can, but don't worry.
We'll break it all down for you.
Okay, perfect. So let's start with salaries.
Right. How much should I expect to pay for a skilled WAMP developer?
Well, as with any tech role, salaries can vary widely depending on experience, location, specific skill set,
Uh-huh.
and even the size and budget of your company.
So there's no magic number?
Not exactly, but just to give you a general idea.
Okay.
In the United States, a mid-level WAMP developer might earn somewhere between $70,000 and $100,000 a year.
And for those with more experience, the senior level folks.
Right. Well, salaries can climb even higher, often reaching $120,000 or more.
Wow.
And of course, if you're looking for someone with specialized skills
Yeah.
in high-demand areas,
Right.
be prepared to offer even more.
Okay, so budgeting is important.
Absolutely. And speaking of budget, location is another major factor to consider.
Right.
With remote work becoming more and more common these days, you can potentially hire from anywhere in the world.
That's true,
Oh.
but wouldn't that make communication more challenging?
Yeah.
Especially with all the different time zones?
It can be a hurdle, but not insurmountable.
Okay.
There are plenty of tools and strategies for managing remote teams effectively.
Yeah, that's true.
And remember, theperfectdeveloper.com
Yeah.
can help you connect with talent from all over the world while also providing you with insights into cultural considerations and best practices for remote collaboration.
So even though they're called the perfect developer, they're not just about finding someone with the perfect skills.
Right.
They're also helping you navigate all the practicalities of building a team, regardless of location.
Exactly. They've really thought of everything.
Yeah, they really have.
Now, location is just one piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
You also need to decide on the type of employment arrangement that best suits your needs.
Yeah, like do you need a full-time developer, a part-time developer, or an
That's it.
in-house team, or maybe a contractor?
Exactly.
Okay. Break it down for me. When would I choose which option?
Okay, well, if you have consistent ongoing development needs
Uh-huh.
and you're looking to build a long-term relationship, a full-time in-house developer is probably the way to go.
Right. So then they become part of your team, part of your company culture.
Exactly. But if your project is more short-term,
Yeah.
or you just need help with specific tasks,
Right.
a contractor or a freelancer might be a more cost-effective solution.
Okay, that makes sense. What about part-time?
Well, part-time can be a good option if you have fluctuating workloads, or maybe you're a smaller company with limited resources.
Uh-huh.
It allows you to tap into specialized skills without the commitment of a full-time salary.
So it's all about finding that balance between cost commitment and the specific needs of your project.
You got it, but no matter which path you choose,
Okay.
there are some common pitfalls you want to avoid
Oh,
when hiring a WAMP developer.
okay.
These are mistakes we see people making all the time,
Uh-huh.
and they can really cost you time, money, and frustration.
Okay. Give it to me straight.
Mm-hmm.
What are the biggest red flags I should be watching out for?
Okay. One of the biggest mistakes people make is focusing solely on cost.
Right.
You might be tempted to go with the cheapest option, especially if you're on a tight budget.
Yeah, for sure.
But remember, you often get what you pay for.
Yeah, so trying to save a few bucks up front could actually end up costing me more in the long run
It definitely could.
if I end up with a developer who just isn't up to par.
Exactly. Skimping on experience and expertise can lead to buggy code missed deadlines.
Right.
And ultimately, a project that goes way over budget.
Ouch. Okay.
Uh,
What else should I avoid?
Well, another common mistake is underestimating the importance of clear communication. This is especially crucial if you're working with remote teams
Right.
or developers from different cultural backgrounds.
Yeah.
So make sure you establish clear expectations,
Okay.
use collaborative tools effectively,
Yeah.
and be mindful of potential language barriers.
So even if someone has the perfect technical skills on paper, if we can't understand each other, it's a recipe for disaster.
Precisely, miscommunication can derail even the most promising projects.
For sure.
And finally, never skip the technical skills assessment.
Right.
It's tempting to rely solely on resumes and interviews. But a practical coding test or challenge can reveal a lot about a developer's true abilities.
It's like an audition.
Yeah, it is.
You want to see them in action
Yeah,
before you cast them in the leading role.
exactly. A well-designed test can help you gauge not only their technical proficiency,
Yeah.
but also their problem-solving skills,
Right.
their coding style,
Okay.
and even their attention to detail.
Wow. This has been incredibly helpful.
I'm glad to hear that.
I feel like I have a much better grasp now of what to look for in a WAMP developer
Good.
and how to avoid some of those common hiring pitfalls.
Yeah, definitely.
And speaking of help, I cannot stress enough
Uh-huh.
how valuable theperfectdeveloper.com has been in this whole process.
That's great.
Their insights and resources, especially the 5 questions tool,
I love that tool.
have really just simplified things.
It's great.
So for our listeners who are ready to take that next step
Uh-huh.
and find their perfect WAMP developer,
Okay.
highly recommend heading over to theperfectdeveloper.com and try out the 5 questions.
It's a good one.
It's a quick and easy and insightful way to get started.
For sure. And as you embark on your search,
Yeah.
here's a final thought to keep in mind.
Okay.
Attracting and retaining top talent goes beyond just offering a good salary.
Mm-hmm.
Think about the kind of development culture you want to create.
Right.
Foster a collaborative, supportive environment
Okay.
where developers feel valued and challenged
Yeah.
and empowered to do their best work.
That's a great point. It's not just about their skills.
It's not.
It's about building a team
Uh-huh.
where everyone can really thrive.
Exactly. A positive and inspiring work environment can make all the difference in the success of your project
Right.
and the happiness of your team.
Well said.
Hmm.
Okay. I think we've covered just about everything there is to know
I think so too.
about hiring WAMP developers.
Yeah.
We talked about their unique skills,
Yeah.
their responsibilities, the key considerations for hiring and managing them,
Mm-hmm.
and even some common mistakes to avoid.
Yeah. Hopefully our listeners are feeling much more equipped now
I hope so.
to navigate the world of WAMP development
Right.
and find the perfect developer for their needs.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us on this mini deep dive today.
It was my pleasure.
We'll see you next time for another insightful exploration of the ever-evolving world of software development.